Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have Debbie. Debbie has a bomb drop of March 15th, 2023, a date of marriage of 1992. She has a vanisher who is a high energy replayer. She says, I moved 2 states away because I couldn't stand to be around my MLCer, and he was monstering. He told me that he wasn't seeing anyone 2 days before he posted pictures of the 2 of them together. I left because he wouldn't. And notice, it is now September 2023, and this was March. 6 months, and she's already moved state. It was so bad. Okay? Our marriage hasn't been good since 2014, so that's 9 years about. I had surgery, and I was on life support, and I'm not sure if this triggered him, since his mom died when he was 6, and his father was in prison. He's had more childhood trauma than just that. I bet he has. If your mom dies and your dad's in prison, it's a perfect storm for more. Sorry. We had just moved back to Ohio where he was raised. I wanted to help him, but he would shut me down, and then the other day he told me she was helping him through this. I don't know what issue he's talking about. I want to be his friend, only at this point, but he still won't talk to me. Do they ever talk to you again without being angry? We used to have good conversations, and I miss that. Yeah, they do. You're dealing with someone who has immense trauma from his background, and childhood trauma is what creates MLC. It is not what triggers MLC. I am saying that because there was a recent discussion I saw on the forums or on the Facebook page about, well, he didn't have that childhood trauma as a trigger. No, a childhood trauma is not the trigger. Childhood trauma builds the gun. Trigger is something that happens soon before bomb drop, such as a parent dying or an illness, losing a job. But the gun is already built. It's already there. There is something already there to be triggered. And that is family of origin issues, usually childhood trauma. And the more trauma, the more challenges they will have in their midlife crisis. So you're dealing with somebody who is scared. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know who he was. He missed many parts in his formative development. So some of that may be about being angry. He doesn't know how to do anything other than be angry. And I want to say, how could he not be? How could he not be angry at the world for having done that to him? And then he didn't have the proper context or structures for working through it. And that wasn't his fault. But even those people who aren't responsible for their childhood grow up to be adults. And many and most become adults who are still, whether they become responsible, they are responsible. In other words, they are accountable for their actions. And he's accountable for his actions. So he may talk to you again. And with time, he may or may not be angry. It depends on how he works through these issues. And I can't tell you how he's going to work through them because he has a lot more challenges than probably others do. You used to have good conversations. Your job is to be there, wherever there is. It doesn't mean you have to be present geographically. You think he's a vanisher. And that may be so, except that you said the other day he told you she's helping him through these issues, which means the other day you had communication with him. Was that the only communication you have had in the last 6 months? How often do you have a communication with him? And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be, hi there. She's working through these issues with me, go away. It could, whatever it is, how often is it? Because maybe he's not really a vanisher. Maybe he's an off and on. Maybe he's only more distant in his communications because you are too. And that's not the wrong choice on your part. But sometimes it's 2 parties waiting for the other one to take action. So it's okay. Forget what everyone says. Sometimes it's okay to initiate contact. But as you said here, I want to be his friend only at this point. So in other words, initiating contact isn't meant to be a relationship talk, a talk about why you did this to me, how could you do this to me? I need closure, you need to answer for your actions. Because you're not going to get those. And he will be resistant and deny, and he will project blame at you. And I think you probably know that. So just wanting to be his friend. Basically, you initiate contact for neutral reasons, or hey, checking in. I was just thinking of you. I missed some of the good conversations we used to have. And then you drop off and you wait for a response that may or may not come. And then 2 weeks later, you do it again, or 3 weeks later, or 6 weeks later. You test it. If you do this every 2 weeks and he doesn't pick up, he initiates, he responds back, but it's a closed response, and you don't get a conversation going that keeps going, maybe try it every 2 weeks from the last contact. So if you contact him and then it goes on for like 5 days, measure from that end of those 5 days. If he says, this is too much, you're calling me too often, make it every 4 weeks that you put a gap between, or 6. And if they seem okay with it, you can reduce the gap. This is an experiment, and what works for one doesn't work for all the rest. So you need to check this out and see what he can accept. And will he talk to you again without being angry? Yes, perhaps. That is going to depend on what he does, but it can also depend on what you do or how you are when you speak with him. So I want you to work on empathy. I want you to work on the tone of voice you are using with him. And I don't know what tone you're using. I'm just showing you the tone. You're going to speak softly, not submissively, but softly. It is a rooted tone of empathy. You are listening. You know what? I'm here for you. And if you need to talk to me, it's okay. If you're afraid, it's just me. I am going to be here if you need me. And if we are able to speak to each other in a kind and respectful manner. And when you're having a challenge with things, I'm going to work to be that even when it's challenging to you. Because I care about you, I love you. Sometimes I'm worried about you. And I want you to know that I believe in you. Now, all of that was said with what Chris Voss, the author, Chris Voss calls the late night DJ voice. Chris Voss was a hostage negotiator. And think about that. A hostage negotiator. They are negotiating with the bad guys. But somehow they have to get the bad guys to pick up. They have to get them to keep talking. They have to get them to listen. And how do you do that? If you're the bad guy, or you're the guy who's going through something and you're making bad choices and you're there, I don't want to listen to this guy. They just want to get me out that door and arrest me. I am not going to listen to them. I'm not going to pick up. They aren't on my side. So automatic resistance. So Chris Voss uses what he called the late night DJ voice, and he roots it in empathy. He has to look at their situation and find actual empathy for it. It looks like you're having a hard time. And mean it. Because if you don't mean it, click, and there are hostages in there. That's what you're going to be doing with your husband. You want to root it in such a tone that there's a feeling of comfort and safety in you. And you keep him talking that way. You keep him talking, and eventually it'll click. Eventually, those hostage people, because Chris Voss didn't just work with bank robbers that were in there for a few hours. He worked with the ones that had people hostages for months also. And so there was a time where they clicked the phone, but they called back. Or he was able to get through if he called back. And it might be next week, or it might be, we pick up the phone right away and call again. So they would have an ongoing relationship. You're building an ongoing relationship with somebody who is a wounded and scared animal in the corner. And you're regaining their trust. And it seems odd because why am I regaining their trust? They're the one who betrayed me. But the kind of trust that they don't have right now is a trust of not your abilities and not your that you've betrayed them and they can't trust you to be trustworthy in that manner of not betraying them, but it is similar. They can't trust that you will not be judgmental, will not hurt them because of your a need for vengeance and retaliation. They made a mistake and they're still making it. And yet they're reaching out to you because you're a place of safety and comfort. Be that. And then you will someday get them to extend more softness, in other words, less anger, and communicate with you more. It's not a guarantee. Your job from where you are is to work on yourself. And I think you're probably doing that because you had enough self-confidence and need to get away. You moved 2 states away because you couldn't stand to be around him. Most people don't do that. And I don't necessarily recommend that we leave the house, but I do recommend you do what is best for you. And if that's what's best for you, congratulations and good job. You're doing the right things for yourself. You work on yourself, you become the best light that you can, a light of grace. And that grace will shine through. And it will shine through to him. Okay? I hope this is helpful. And I will see everybody in the next question.